U.S. intelligence suggests Russian commanders have received orders to move forward with an invasion. Moscow denies these claims. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the Kremlin is looking to create a manufactured crisis to prompt an invasion. He spoke to my colleagues on CBS Mornings about the Biden administration's intentions moving forward.
What we have done is indicate to the world that this is not something Russia has been provoked into. This is a brutal war of choice that Russia will be perpetrating on its neighbor, and that will enable us, if they in fact do move forward, to rally not just the West but the world to hold Russia accountable for what it has done.
CBS News national security correspondent David Martin joins us now from the Pentagon with more on this. David, so we know that this potential one-on-one between Biden and Putin is in the background, but what do we know about a potential U.S. response if Russia moves forward with what the White House is calling this brutal war of choice?
Well, the response would take two forms. It would take economic sanctions, which the Biden administration have said will be very severe, and which the Europeans have agreed to go along with. And it will take the form of troop deployments, both American and from other places in Europe, up to the eastern flank of NATO. Now, the Biden administration has been telegraphing those responses almost from day one of this crisis in an attempt to persuade Putin that he will be worse off after an invasion than he will be if he leaves Ukraine alone. You have to say that it does not appear to be working, and he has given every indication that he's made the calculus that he will be better off even with economic sanctions, even with more U.S. troops in Europe, as long as he has Ukraine in his sphere of influence.
Well, David, to your point, you reported Sunday that Russian troops have received orders to move forward with the invasion of Ukraine. Can you give us some more context around this reporting and an idea of what it means in terms of timing?
Well, the Pentagon spokesman, John Kirby, said this morning, today could be the day. One date that U.S. officials have been worried about in particular is the 22nd of February, because that is the anniversary of the day in 2014 when the last pro-Russian leader of Ukraine was forced to flee the country. If attacks were to begin under cover of darkness on the 22nd in Ukraine, that would be tonight here in the United States. So we literally could be just hours away from the start of an attack. Now, we've been focusing and talking mostly about all of the tanks and other ground forces that have been seen around the borders of Ukraine, simply because they are the easiest to spot. They show up in the satellite photos, and they show up on cell phone videos taken by people on the ground. But U.S. officials expect an attack to begin not with tanks rolling across the border, but with cyber attacks followed by airstrikes on Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, going after Ukrainian command and control centers and going after air defense. And once the Russian attack has in effect blinded the Ukraine military and made it impossible for them to communicate with each other and maneuver in response to whatever the attack plan is from Russia, then you could expect tanks to go across the border. But with 21st century communications, Putin can call audibles at almost any time. So he could start with these airstrikes against Kyiv, and if they work like a charm and all of a sudden all of these hidden infiltrators that the Russians no doubt already have inside Kyiv come out and install a puppet government, maybe that's good enough for him. Maybe he doesn't feel he has to send tanks rolling across the border.
Well, David, considering we're wondering what might happen next, CBS News obtained a letter from the U.S. to the UN Office of the High Commission for Human Rights, and that letter warns the Commission of specific Ukrainians and targets Russia is compiling to, quote, be killed or sent to camps following a military occupation. What more do we know about this?
Well, this letter, I think, is just one more example of the looming catastrophe that the country of Ukraine faces, because these lists, as they've been explained, do not just include, say, the current leaders of the pro-Western government of Ukraine, and it does not include just anti-Russian politicians in Ukraine. It includes other elements of society, such as academics, such as members of think tanks, such as even journalists. So they could really dismember Ukrainian society.
David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you so much. We appreciate it.